Welcome to the next session, Innovation and Technological Shifts in Educational Labor Markets. It's an honor to have an excellent speaker, Ms. Parco, Research Analyst from the Center for Universal Education at the Brookings Institution. Ms. Parco, thank you very much for your time on behalf of the Greek American Chamber of Commerce. We are very pleased to have you with us, and we identified that we actually were in the same school in U of Penn in the United States. So hopefully we can see you someday in Thessaloniki. So maybe we can start how you would like to start. Do you have a presentation or should we ask questions?
Let's start with a presentation and then we'll jump into
super.
Q&A.
Let's do that. Thank you.
Thank you for having me here. I'm Allyson Parco. I'm a research analyst at the Center for Universal Education at Brookings Institution. I currently research and work on an international landscape study that examines the opportunities, challenges, and successes of emergent technologies for learners and workers. And I'm studying what this means for interacting sectors such as government, higher education, and technology experts. And I'm very excited to discuss, and I wish I could be there with you all. So because of COVID, more and more people every day are learning, finding work, and networking with digital tools. Globally, the pandemic spurred the largest growth in internet connectivity in 10 years. As technology expands rapidly and diffuses into every sector, proponents argue that they represent a powerful force for democratizing learning. So what am I referring to when I say technology? I'm not just talking about moving everything online, classes or job trainings. It's a much more fundamental shift. And to better visualize key trends, I'll go through key stages of development here. First, we had analog, which was the old school in-person interaction of submitting a job application on paper. And learners could signal their skills through academic transcripts and paper diplomas and paper resumes. It was all very traditional practices when job searching. Then we moved into the online phase, where you could now view and apply to as many jobs as you want through online boards and websites such as monster.com and LinkedIn. There are so many resources for networking and for job searching readily available at your fingertips. And the online phase also allowed learners and workers to get degrees online, to get certificates, to get professional licenses. But through this latest shift and the platform dynamic, learners can earn digital credentials. They can do trainings through virtual reality and augmented reality with VR goggles. And with digital badges and nano degrees, they can also signal skills that don't come from a university, right? These may come from a technology bootcamp, a coding bootcamp, or a short-term learning course that verifies their skills digitally. And this also meets the needs of working learners. So those who don't fall into the traditional post-secondary education pathway. And this is beyond what online can do, and it's happening today. So to ground what I've been talking about, one real-life example within the platform category is the digital wallet. And a digital wallet is an online or app-based tool that records learning and employment. This behaves similar to generating a job application or portfolio for potential employers. And the digital wallet is portable. It can be on your phone, and it cuts down the number of administrative interactions, like paying for a transcript from an institution and all of that back and forth that used to take place. With a digital wallet, learners have the ability to, one, signal their learning to employers, and two, have multiple forms of learning and skills recognized. But if I were putting myself in a user's shoes, the danger here is, how will they even understand how using a digital wallet can benefit them? And what are their data privacy rights? And if they were to use a digital wallet in another context, would it work? Is the technology standardized across systems? So while these technologies introduce many opportunities for building and learning skills, they also bring challenges. What can arise? There are issues specifically on equity and access, right? Such as financial barriers and digital divides, either by gender or by socioeconomic status. Not everyone has access to high-speed internet or multiple devices to do work and to study. Compounded with the use of algorithms and artificial intelligence, there's evidence that machine learning can allow bias. Interoperability is a big word, but at its core, technology and systems need to be able to communicate with each other and speak to each other. If a learner has a digital credential from a different country, it should still be able to be verified and displayed without issues. This area requires constant work because there are a number of platforms out there. But interoperability allows data and information to be exchanged securely and accurately. So we need the data to be interoperable so that it can be of value to all the parties involved. Ownership is what I discussed kind of with the digital wallet. So concerns on user rights and who owns the data. And then do platforms and hosts potentially use and sell the data? Do users know about that? As these proliferate, it's harder for employers and learners to share an understanding of what each technology means. So the value and the assurance of digital credentials, digital badges, and wallets, they need to be universally understood, otherwise they lose their worth. This can be even more difficult because there is a multitude of options and platforms, again, that you can choose from. And in terms of progress, technology is surging ahead, but it's important that implementers, whether they come from government, higher education, or the technology sector, that they're aware of both the promises and perils. So what do? We need the capacity and infrastructure to implement technology. The scope has to be realistic, right? You can't ask someone in government to create an education or labor program in 6 months. These things require time and they require intention. Otherwise, we'll have products that don't work 5 months down the road and don't help learners and workers. Success also needs to be measured for improvement. It would be helpful to know what areas work best and what areas are lacking. And another way to assist in that is to get user input. So designing technology for the user and with user protections, it puts them first. Many people should be at the table, embracing and sharing their expertise and receiving user input. Great work is being done, and it shows that equitable and innovative technology like VR trainings, digital credentials, and badges can be developed. With my colleagues on this current project at Brookings, we published a white paper last month titled Learning and Working in the Digital Age, and you can read it via the brookings.edu website. Ultimately, experts across all sectors are needed. This is a collaborative effort. It's an exciting time to work across silos and to provide best practices and improve learning outcomes for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the excellent presentation. Please allow me to ask you some further questions. What is motivating the shifts to badges, as you said, digital wallets and virtual reality? Can you speak more about how different sectors are responding to change through technology?
Yes, so there's a lot of things happening besides just the pandemic. In higher education, systems want more learners. They want to get learners from different ages and they want to expand those groups. So how do you do this? You offer different learning times and different courses that are available to those who work. You go beyond those who just finished high school or those who are interested in a shorter term degree. And this way, you can get more people involved and interacting with your school again. And with the nature of work, we also see that more people in the front lines are working with technology. So we have self-checkouts now where you can scan your items and just leave the grocery store. So that person now has to work with technology. They look at you, they review you, they act like security kind of, but they're also there if any problems arise with the technology. So everyone is becoming accustomed to this new digital revolution. Whether you're a worker or a learner, you are exposed to this And it's going to help in the long run just to become more aware of what's happening and this change.
Thank you. Another question, how does the current data look for pilot programs? Do we know what audience are engaging with micro-credentials, virtual trainings, and hybrid learning?
That's a good question because this also involves data privacy rights. So as pilots move forward, we need to know, are they collecting user data? Are they making it non-identifiable? And do they have repositories? We are not yet at that stage, but it's important for implementers to keep in mind how to record data and how to study audiences. For example, who is using micro-credentials? Is it people who come from wealthy backgrounds? Is it people who are already advantaged and who only have access to high-speed internet? That means that we are leaving behind those in other countries, and it's only benefiting a very privileged population.
Great. What is your advice, a proposed roadmap for a short-term and long-term goals for the academic institutions about upskilling and reskilling through lifelong learning seminars?
My advice for upskilling and reskilling is collaboration and to keep learning from each other. There are multiple seats at this table, right? Whether you are in government or if you are at a civil society org or you work in research. They can all come from different perspectives, but it's very important when it comes to the development and rollout of these technologies because we need different parties. We can't expect government to do something very fast, and we can't expect technology to make sure that it's perfect, right? We need collaboration here.
And who is leading the process of this collaboration?
There are great initiatives out there to already look out. If we're talking about national governments, New Zealand has their qualifications framework, and that is very progressive. They were one of the first countries to do it, and their transcripts are basically all digital. And they started implementing micro-credentials into their New Zealand qualifications framework in 2018, so very recently. There are also different initiatives in Asia that are working to implement digital badges and micro-credentials through specific universities. And that is in Indonesia. There are more examples that you can also read about in our new white paper that came out last month.
Super. Another question, what initiatives are most successful in your opinion? Do you have any that you are currently researching or examples that the audience can look into to give us some new insights?
Yes, so we are currently conducting 3 case studies over this summer. So I will be studying Ireland, I will be studying Indonesia, and I will be studying an initiative here in the United States, which is the Digital Credentials Consortium. And there are many successful aspects from each. So I would say in the US, one of the great successes or benefits that they're focused on is creating the digital infrastructure for credentials, because we need those to help verify and to validate and to protect user data and information. One of the benefits from Indonesia is that they are working across, I believe, 10 to 15 universities. So by working together, you can actually make sure that learners, whether they're located in a different region, still have the same opportunities. And another one is the qualifications framework, which the United States does not have. And so that can be a really great asset as well. There are many successes, but there are also many challenges. And that's what I will be working on this summer.
Okay, thank you, Allyson. You had one of your slides about the areas of concern, and my question is, how could digital equity, transparency, and ethical use of data be achieved in a world where everyone looks for their personal profit?
Right. So I would say one important thing about digital equity is to use open source standards when you're building technology. That way, you don't have many companies building platforms just for profit. you would actually have one standard that all companies can follow. And one of the most famous open source standards is the internet. We have one internet, and you can use different browsers, you can use different tabs and pages, and it all works in the same manner. And W3C led that standard. And so if we had a standard for digital credentials and digital wallets, it would follow that manner, that you can use the same standard and it would be available to all without profit.
Super. For sure, there are many changes in modern education with which the educational system of many countries need to keep up. Apart from the basic school knowledge, what other soft skills or expertise do students need to develop in order to correspond to the needs of the new labor markets?
Mhm. Well, you can get learning and skills from outside of school. And a lot of these alternative forms of learning encourage that. So if that is through experiential learning or if that is through a job, that should be recognized as skill building. Just because you didn't go to university and just because you don't have a degree doesn't mean that you are unskilled. And I think that this change really shows the importance of having records of that. And some soft skills that would be needed, I would say, would be emotional intelligence, it would be collaboration, it would be service, things besides STEM that can really be applied to help benefit them in life, not just in the workforce or just in a school setting.
Great. A further question, for sure, technology heavily influenced the labor market, either through online meetings and interviews or via hiring digital platforms. However, what are the possible problems and the hidden risks behind these new initiatives? Are they able to establish in a long term?
I don't know how long they'll be able to be running in the long term, but I predict that they will be very successful. The internet and distance learning have been going on the past 15 or 20 years now. And even the pandemic showed that countries were kind of pushed to do this when schools were shut down physically and when they had to implement hybrid learning or distance learning through remote technologies. So I think this next phase of using virtual reality or augmented reality, I think that this shows that it can be done. It's just a matter of who will have the access to it. Will it only be wealthy countries? And that's not what we want. We want everyone to be able to learn. We want to serve all workers and learners and to give them the opportunity. So it is happening today, but it is not happening for all.
Great. One more question just for me. If you had our Prime Minister in front of you and they said, Allyson, give me an advice of how I can move, forward Greece, what advice you will give very briefly, like elevator pitch?
I would say two things. Interoperability is of utmost importance because we live in a world where you can communicate across borders now, right? I get to speak with all of you in Thessaloniki, and this is possible because our systems can speak to each other. And we need the same thing for digital wallets, digital credentials. My second thing is that equity needs to be in every prime minister's mind because we have digital divides and because we have so much barriers to learning and working. Education needs to be valued, and not everyone starts with the same knowledge of digital literacy, so we cannot leave those learners behind.
Collaboration is the key word, as I heard from you, Allyson. But people, there is a difference between cooperation. Cooperation, as you know, is ad hoc. You do it and you disappear. Collaboration is you work all the time to accomplish the goal. So if you can give us, and now I'm using your brain, as you can see, if you give us, one more advice about how a collaboration could happen between government, industry, and academia. What is your suggestion about that?
I would say first start off with roundtables, very intimate, maybe a couple representatives from each sector just sitting at the table, because I'm sure that government has questions about the technology, right? Government would be like, what does this mean? What is interoperability? And the tech people can explain that. Then we can also have people in higher education who represent the learners. And they would say something like, how does this benefit my school? And how does this help my learners and my students grow throughout the next, however long the program is, 1 year, 2 years, 4 years. And so with different roundtables, you can develop working groups and you can keep expanding that network that eventually has representation from all people, from all sectors, just working together.
Great. Now, as you know, our brain can keep only 3 things in our brain. So you can give us 3 key takeaways so we can take back home.
I would say to remember that digital credentials can represent skills in new, innovative ways. We're not just talking about moving courses online, but something more beyond that. And it can be a scary step, right? For learners and workers. They might not know how it can benefit them. But if we engage audiences and make them aware of what is available to them, they may become interested and they may interact with the technology more. Number 2 is that we need to work with countries who may not have the same progress or the same timeline as us, because we don't want to leave them behind. And number 3, I would say that every role here is important. Civil society, research, anyone can work on this. And I encourage you all to become more involved and to read about what is happening. And if not, you can also start an initiative within your own country and your own government. And that program would help so much more learners and workers in the world.
Okay. It seems we have a few more minutes. Is anything else that you like to add to us that, as with the discussion that we had, is anything else that you would like to add? We have 1 or 2 minutes. Or I can ask you a question if you don't have something.
I don't.
Okay. So another question that I had, regarding upskilling and reskilling. Reskilling, for example, they say, do you think, what are the challenges for reskilling? As they say, usually we say, can you teach an old dog new tricks? So how you think we can do? Because I found that is a very challenging. What will be your suggestion for reskilling?
I agree with you. Reskilling is very difficult, especially when we don't know whose role it is. So is it the role of the employee to say, I need to reskill and I need to go out on my own and find something that will help me in the workforce and improve and sell myself to employers to show my value has increased? Or is it the role of the company to say, we need to provide this to our employees? We need to provide them with learning so they can grow within the company. I think there are 2 different approaches here. And there's a lot of confusion because it isn't set. Some people will say, I don't have the resources to reskill. I think this needs to be led by the employers and it needs to be led by companies. So when you provide the opportunity to reskill and to learn on the job, people will stay with you. You retain employees that way. And the challenge here is that they're leaving to new jobs. They're trying their best to learn, and that can be done through technology, but it's done without you. So if you want to be active and you want to benefit your workers, you should take initiative of reskilling and upskilling.
Great. This is all the time that we have for our session discussion today. Thank you for joining us and taking the time to attend the second Thessaloniki Thinking Dialogues that was organized by the American Hellenic Chamber of Commerce. Big thanks to all of you, the participants, and mainly to our speaker, Ms. Parco Allyson. Thank you for your time and thank you for your insights that you gave us. Now I have to go back home and I have to see all these terms that you are using here, micro-credentials, wallets, badges. But I enjoy it very much. I hope our participants enjoy it also. Thank you very much and looking forward to come sometime to come also to our home city here in Thessaloniki. Thank you, Ms. Parco. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.